Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is a piece of God. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened, is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God is master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, it's produced by the Society of Knowledge. The Society is an interdenominational ministry. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common. And that's the knowledge that there is a being. By no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Jehovah, Buddha, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show. And that's to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed Almighty. Today is, and let's see if we can get this up on the screen. All right. Today is not October 27th. Today is actually October the 28th. And this is, we are doing a redo, a makeover. The show that was broadcast last evening, October 27th, that show had audio problems. We didn't have the audio. So we're redoing the whole show. We're doing it all over again. And hopefully we'll have our audio straight because there's some good information that we want to get out there. So that's why we're doing it all over again. So no, today is not October 27th. Today is indeed October 28th. The Society of Knowledge. I'm excited. I'm happy to announce that the Society of Knowledge is celebrating. We are celebrating our 43rd anniversary. Our 43rd anniversary. And that will be this coming Saturday. Next Saturday, November the 5th. 2022, 5 p.m., and we will have that celebration in Crowley, Louisiana. I'm also excited, also happy to announce that not only are we celebrating our 43rd anniversary, but we will be celebrating the acknowledgement of ordination of Brother Frank Othello Andrus Jr. as a messenger in the society. So, we're going to have some double pleasure on November 5th, 2022. And that celebration will take place at the Rice Palace, and that's located at 2015 North Cherokee Street in the city of Crowley, Louisiana. So 43rd anniversary. That's right. For more than 43 years, we've been doing this, delivering a message that God is Almighty. 43 years ago, we were incorporated. We got our legal papers from the state of Louisiana, but we've been delivering the message, doing this work for more than 43 years. So I'm excited about that. 43 years of doing this work, and hopefully God will continue to bless us that we will have many, many, many more years of doing this work. And it's really not work to me. To me, I get enjoyment, pleasure out of delivering that message, because I get enjoyment. If you join us with a fellowship on Sunday, one of the songs that we sing is "This Little Light of Mine." So I get enjoyment out of letting my light shine. I get and my light is the message that God is Almighty. That's my light. My light is that message. And I enjoy delivering that message. I enjoy letting that light shine, letting folks know that it's not in your hands, it's not in my hands, it's not in the man across the street's hands, it's in God's hands. God is indeed Almighty. So hopefully you can join us November 5th, 5 p.m. in Crowley, Louisiana for our 43rd anniversary celebration and our celebration of the acknowledgement ordination of Messenger Frank Othello Andrus Jr. Previous recorded episodes of the message can be watched on television on Cox Cable Orleans Channel 76 every Wednesday at 1 p.m. and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch previously recorded episodes of the message on our YouTube channel, and that channel is DNK Messenger. A Society of Knowledge, we have our fellowship celebration. Some might say our church service. That's every Sunday. Every Sunday, we have our fellowship, and that is on Facebook Live, on the Messenger Facebook page, and also here on my Facebook page. That's Donatus NK. But you can look at the Messenger Facebook page. That's every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And on the second and fourth Sundays, we have our in-person fellowship, in person. So every week, you can join us in fellowship on Facebook, online, but on the second and fourth Sundays, you can join us not only online, but you can join us in person. In our next in-person fellowship, that will be the second Sunday in November, and that's November the 13th, and that's at 10 a.m., okay, 10 a.m., and we will be in person. Our place of worship is Imani Temple number 28, and that's located at 2411 Treasure Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. We do have some light refreshments, and no matter what your religious affiliation, no matter what church you belong to, even if you don't belong to church, you're welcome. Come on, we're interdenominational, so it doesn't matter what name you give yourself and what name somebody else is giving you. Even if you don't have a name, come on down. You're welcome to come and fellowship with us, celebrate with us, worship with us. Okay, let's get into our religious spiritual study. And again, if you hear me say something or you see me put something up on the screen and it's not quite right, then let me know. Okay, let me know. And then that way we can make sure we put out the correct information here. All right. And our discussion topic this evening is All Souls Day, All Saints Day, All Hallows Eve / Halloween. All right. Say Monday, October 31st is the day that a lot of folks will be celebrating this holiday that's called Halloween. But a lot of folks know about the candy and the jack-o'-lanterns and the trick-or-treating and the costumes. They know about Halloween, about that aspect of Halloween. But some folks have no idea that Halloween does have a religious connection. And it has had a religious connection since over 2,000 years ago, a religious connection, all right? And it's not a religious connection in the sense of being connected to the devil, a religious connection. So let's learn a little bit something about Halloween. And you see on the screen there, it says All Souls Day and All Saints Day. Now, a lot of you do not know what is that, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. Well, we're going to learn about it a little bit this evening. Okay, All Hallows Eve, otherwise known as Halloween, will be Monday, October the 31st. Okay, so one of the things that we're learning here is that All Hallows Eve is the same thing as Halloween. And actually that name Halloween comes from All Hallows Eve. People got lazy, and instead of saying the whole name All Hallows Eve, it got shortened and shortened and shortened to the point where it became just Halloween. And hallow actually is another word for saint. Okay, so All Saints Day, All Saints Eve. All right, so that's what Halloween, a translation of Halloween is All Saints Eve. All right, that'll be this Monday, October 31st. Now you see the second on the screen, and that's All Saints Day. That's Tuesday, November the 1st. All right. So now that makes sense. If Monday is All Saints Eve, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, and Eve means the day before it, like Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas, New Year's Eve, the day before New Year's, All Hallows Eve, the day before All Saints Day. All right. And that's November the 1st. See, now you learn something that you don't really hear people talk about this kind of stuff too much. But now you get the rest of the story. And that's what we like about the Society of Knowledge, sharing knowledge, spreading knowledge. So when we learn stuff, we share it so that you're not walking around in the blind. You hear what I said earlier? About this little light of mine, I like letting it shine. So you're not in the dark about this stuff anymore. Okay. And when we learn stuff, we're going to share that information. So that's where that comes from, that Halloween and All Saints Day. We're going to learn a bit more about that. And then also the next one, All Souls Day. And that's celebrated on Wednesday, November the 2nd. All right. So let's discuss a little bit about All Hallows Eve, about Halloween. All right. And we're going to start the discussion. Now, see what's on the screen now. That's something scientific. All right. That's nothing dealing with ghosts and goblins and witches and all that. And that's nothing dealing with religion. That's science. Okay. And what you see on your screen right now is a depiction, a chart of cross-quarter days. Okay. Now, Brother King, what is cross-quarter days? What do you mean by that? All right. Well, let's look at it. The cross-quarter days fall more or less midway between the equinoxes. And what is an equinox? An equinox is a time when the sun sets due west. And if you look on the screen, and you'll see there are two equinoxes. Okay, one, and there the pointer is going around there, and that says autumnal equinox, the autumn equinox. All right. And that's the season that we are in right now. All right. Autumn, right? You got spring, summer, fall. Some folks call it autumn. This autumnal equinox. And then if you look down here towards the bottom of the page, you see the vernal equinox. And the vernal, that's spring. All right. So we have two equinoxes, and these are all scientific. Okay, scientific, okay, astronomical, not astrology, astronomical, astronomy, science, right? So we have the autumnal equinox, the vernal equinox, and the equinoxes are what? What did I say they were? I said when the sun sets due west, all right? And you see equinoxes, and then we see solstices. Here's a summer solstice to the right of the page and a winter solstice on the left of the page. So we have four different points that we can talk about. We can talk about the autumnal equinox, the vernal equinox, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice. Okay, so those are 4 points. And those are 4 points in time. All right, in time. So the equinoxes reflect the positions of the sun. And by measuring the position of the sun, that helps us to measure time. That's how calendars were developed. You see, and we talked about this, nowadays, if we want to know what we're going to be doing 3 months from now or 4 months from now, we look at a calendar. And we can look at a calendar, and we're in the month of October, and we can look at the calendar and we can know that, all right, 8 months from now, that's going to be what? June? Okay, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. That's going to be June. Let's say 9 months. 9 months from now, it's going to be July, right? So we can stand here right now and we can say in 9 months from now, it's going to be hot because it's going to be July. See, and we can tell when July gets here by looking at the calendar. Well, see, thousands of years ago, they didn't have calendars. Okay, calendars had to be developed, and the way people created, the way people developed calendars, were by looking at the stars in the sky, looking at the planets in the sky, looking at the sun, looking at the moon. And they determined that, oh, okay, so now we see that when I wake up in the morning, here the sun is going over the mountain. And then the next day they look and they say that, well, the sun is coming over the trees. So they see that the sun is moving and is in different positions. And over the thousands of years, they remembered this and they passed this information on and wrote it down. And they got to the point where they realized that it took 366 days for the cycle to start repeating itself. You see that? They figured that out. That every 366 days, the cycle would start over again. And that's how we developed the concept of measuring time. That's how we developed the concept of calendars. And scientifically, the location of the sun at different times of the year, names have been attributed to it. And what's so important, and understand what I'm saying now, because, I say, I'm going to let the light shine. Some of us have been walking around in darkness for so long and bumping into things that when you get a little bit light on it, it gives you what? It gives you freedom. Because now you don't have to creep along to keep from getting hurt and bumping into something. You can go ahead and just go on, walk on about your business and move it like you want because the light is shining. So this right here, this information, this knowledge about how to measure, understand what I'm saying, how to measure time, okay? That knowledge was power. It is power. And listen to what I'm telling you now. It's power because 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, when man was figuring out how to measure time, the man that knew how to measure time, he had power over the other men. Understand what I'm saying? He had power. Listen to this. If I'm a farmer 20,000 years ago, I'm a farmer, and you're a farmer. So we both farmers. I have my seeds. You have your seeds. I have the knowledge about measuring time. I know that right now it's cold and getting cold. I know don't plant my seeds right now because it's going to get colder. The ground's going to freeze up. My seeds are going to die. And because I know that what I should do is just wait about another 5 months before I plant my seeds. And then the weather's going to start getting warm. And then I'm going to have a whole lot of crops. See, but you don't know that. You don't know how to measure time. So you get your seeds and you'll plant them. And then come November, it starts getting colder. December, the ground freezes up. January, the ground is frozen. Your seeds are dead. So here it is, come May, June, my seeds are sprouting up and growing. I got all crops. You ain't got nothing there. So you're going to starve. Then you're going to have to come to me to get something to eat. I got power over you now. See that? So see, the knowledge the knowledge of measuring time, how powerful that was. And it came from measuring the positions of the sun, the moon, the different planets. And this is something that men learned thousands of years ago. Now I'm gonna tell you something. What happened? And I'm not talking out of school. I'm telling you what I know. What happened over time was that folks started seeing how valuable it was to have this knowledge. And instead of sharing it with everybody, they figured out that if they kept that knowledge to themselves, they can keep power. So what they did was they start putting a whole lot of gobbledygook in there and a lot of mumble jumble, and have people thinking that something else altogether out the way is going on, instead of telling them that, well, this is what we're doing. We're looking at the position of the sun, and that way we know when to plant our crops. Okay? A lot of gobbledygook to keep it all obfuscated, keep it all hidden, that hidden knowledge. Yeah, we read about that in the Bible. In the Bible, we read about hidden knowledge. In the Bible, we read about the apostles talking about, well, we're not going to give you this information, because if you got that information, your system is not strong enough to handle it, because they got some information. I'm going to share something with you now. I'm getting a little bit off topic, but they got some information right now dealing with the spirit, dealing with the spiritual world. That's some information that a whole lot of you all are not ready to digest. Your system is not ready for it. And as in the scripture say that I fed you with milk because I couldn't give you that meat. You're not ready for it. Spiritual matters, I can't give that to you now because you're not ready for it. But let's get back on topic right now. And that's that information that we're looking at about the cross-quarter days. And getting back to it, it says here, all right, so getting back, the cross-quarter days fall more or less midway between the equinoxes, when the sun sets due west, and solstices, when the sun sets at its most northern or southern point on the horizon. So here we go. First cross-quarter day, second, right where you see second, third, and fourth, and there's the midpoint between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. So right there, an ancient man figured this out by watching year after year after year after year, watching these cycles, figured this out. All right, Halloween, October 31st, is approximately midway between our autumn, and that's September equinox, and winter, December solstice. All right, so here we are right here, the fourth quarter day. All right, now, in other words, in traditional astronomy, there are 8 major seasonal subdivisions of every year. They include the March and September equinoxes, the June and December solstices, and the intervening 4 cross-quarter days. In modern times, the 4 cross-quarter days are often called Groundhog Day, February 2nd, May Day, Lammas, and the most sinister cross-quarter day, because it comes at a dark time of the year, Halloween, October 31st. So look, it originated, not something to have ghosts and goblins and all the rest of that, but it really originated as a way to tell time, power. You see that? But in order to hide that knowledge and keep that knowledge to themselves, folks start talking about, well, this is ghosts and goblins and all the rest of that getting ready to come out. This is Halloween. This is, all the spooky stuff, to try to confuse people and keep people dumb and ignorant. But see, we're going to let that light shine. Okay? Put that knowledge out there. All right? Let it shine. So you ain't got to be bumping into stuff. You can get up and walk straight. Walk straight. Walk straight ahead. Equinoxes, solstices, and cross-quarter days are all hallmarks of Earth's orbit around the sun. You see that? You see, it's science, pure science. Halloween is the fourth cross-quarter day of the year. Halloween marks the approximate midway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. So Halloween is an astronomy holiday and one of the year's 4 cross-quarter days. Now that information that I read, that scientific information, you can check it out for yourself. Go online, Google it. This one particular website is earthsky.org, earthsky.org /astronomy cross-quarter days. So check it out for yourself. You'll learn a little bit of something. All right, let's move on, because now we've talked about the scientific basis and origin of Halloween. Now we're going to talk about the religious development of Halloween. All right. Halloween's origins date back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. And the Celtic people lived about 2,000 years ago, mostly in the area that is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France. And they celebrated their New Year on November 1. So here, this area here, okay, that just gives you some idea. Ireland and all this part of the United Kingdom, Britain, Great Britain, northern France, all that area, right? And here we have the Mediterranean Sea, and then we have Greece and the rest of that down here. There's Italy, Sicily, all right? So this is this area, this particular area here, where the Celts were, and they celebrated their New Year on November the 1st. This day marked the end of summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter, a time of year that was often associated with human death. Celts believed that on the night before the New Year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to Earth. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, Celts thought that the presence of the otherworldly spirits made it easier for the Druids, or Celtic priests, to make predictions about the future. So now you see how it's gone from something purely scientific with the cross-quarter days to now we have ghosts and all this kind of stuff up in there. See that? You see that? How that fooling stuff around? See that? So if all you thought was going on that New Year, if all you thought was that ghosts and stuff was coming around, then you wouldn't be knowing how to plant your crops and when you plant your crops. Okay? You'd be focusing on, ghosts and stuff coming around. You'd be focusing on things like trick-or-treating, just like folks today, focusing on things like trick-or-treating, not realizing that the real knowledge is when you're gonna plant your crops. Okay? Something else I failed to say. Not only would it tell you when to plant your crops, but if you was a hunter, if you wasn't a farmer, if you was a hunter, it would tell you when to start doing your hunting, where the game was going to go, okay, where the animals were going to go, because at a certain time of the year, the animals leave from one area and they go to another. Okay, when it starts getting real cold, the animals start migrating, trying to find a warmer place. And animals, they have that innate knowledge about the seasons. They know, they don't need to look at a calendar. They have their own knowledge on when the weather is about to change. So if you're a hunter, by you knowing the same thing, that gave you an advantage over some other hunter that didn't know the information that you knew. All right. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, the Celts thought that the presence of the otherworldly spirits made it easier for the Druids or Celtic priests to make predictions about the future. To commemorate the event, Druids, and those are the Celtic priests, built huge sacred bonfires where the people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. And as we said, that's the barbecues. In other words, they had a big old barbecue. All right, that's what it was, a big old barbecue, where the people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, and attempted to tell each other's fortunes. By AD 43, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of the Celtic territory. Let's scroll back up there to that map. Okay, so we see this is where the Celts started out. They had their beliefs about sowing and all the rest of that. And here here's Rome, okay? Here's Rome down here, right? Italy. See that? But the Roman Empire had come all this area. You see that? The Roman Empire. And see a lot of folks who say the Holy Roman Empire. Okay? And they took over the Celtics land, Ireland, Britain. They took that over, right? So when they took it over, guess what happened? They started exchanging information, exchanging ideas. And so information like religions of the Celts, instead of just trying to stamp it out all together, some of it was borrowed by the Romans. And then the Romans took that stuff that they borrowed and then they sprayed it around. And things got to be like a little gumbo, mixed up, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All right. So now we're talking about what's happened with the Roman Empire. And say by AD 43, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of Celtic territory. In the course of the 400 years that they ruled the Celtic lands, two festivals of Roman origin were combined with the traditional Celtic celebration of Samhain. All right, so now we see this mixing and intermingling of these religions and these different practices and ceremonies, right? So we see it bleeding over from one religion to the other religion. And that same thing is going on today. Same thing is going on today. And that information, that comes from the website, www.history.com, www.history.com/Halloween. Okay. Now, guess what was going on? Something else was going on. Let's catch up with this. All Saints' Day, which began most likely as All Martyrs' Day, can be traced to the earliest Christians. By the 3rd century, the followers, and what you see on your screen, that's a depiction of a martyr, somebody that dies for their religious belief. All right. By the 3rd century, the followers of Christ were annually honoring their brothers and sisters who had given their lives, had been martyred, while witnessing for and defending Jesus Christ. So folks would get killed. They would go to die. They'd go to death, give up their life for their faith. Okay? Give it up. Just die because of their faith. Typically, on the anniversary of a martyr's death, those living would gather to remember and offer prayers at the tomb or place where the deceased had died. The belief among the first Christians, which continues today, is that believers who died defending Christ were borne by angels to heaven. So what we're talking about now is this celebration, this holy day called All Saints' Day. All right. So we have Halloween, October 31st. Then the very next day, All Saints' Day. And remember what it said about Halloween? Comes from the words, what? All Hallows Eve, and hallow means what? Saints. So we see, and we say all Saints Eve, All Halloween, Eve being the day before. So now we can see, now we get a little understanding. Okay, so now we on the day, November 1st of All Saints Day, and the day before that was All Saints Day Eve, Halloween. You see all that stuff coming together? All right. So now, and this is where I like this part here. Look how it's getting real interesting here. So on All Saints Day, if you were a true defender of the faith, a true believer, and you died, they came to you and said, look, you got to believe in Baal, or you have to believe in sowing, you got to believe in this. And they said, no, I'm believing in Jesus Christ. I'm professing my faith in Jesus Christ. They will kill you. Okay? So you would be a martyr. You'd be a martyr for your faith. And those folks that were martyrs for the faith, the other people that survived, they would take and celebrate them. And every year they would have an annual celebration. They say, Joe Brown was a martyr. Yeah, he died. He died for his faith. They tried to get him to reject Jesus Christ. And he said, no, I'm not rejecting Jesus Christ. And then they chopped off his head. And they chopped it off on April 4th. They chopped his head off. So every April 4th, they will celebrate Joe Brown's death. That's the day he became a martyr. And the teaching of the church was that if you're a martyr, if your faith is that strong, then you're going to go straight to heaven. Your soul going straight to heaven. Okay? So now, All Saints Day. All saints. If you're a martyr or if you're a saint, and a saint is one different definitions, but the church officially declares who is a saint and who's not a saint. As far as if you work so many kind of miracles, stuff like that, then you be declared a saint. But the teachings of the church, particularly the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, is that on All Saints Day, there's a remembrance for all the saints, all the martyrs, and then all of those, what they call confessors, people that wouldn't give up their religion, but for whatever reason, they were not killed. All right. And look what it says, in those first centuries, there were more and more Christians who accepted death at the hands of the Romans than deny Christ. Additionally, others who had publicly confessed their Christian faith, also known as confessors, and somehow survived the Romans, were also honored. Thus, the number of martyrs and confessors became greater than the opportunities to give each one an anniversary celebration, and the need for a common feast day was recognized. So instead of everybody being recognized on individual days, like Joe Brown on April 4th, Sue Green on April 7th, Slim Joseph on October the 10th, instead of all them different days, the church came up and said, well, we're going to pick out one day where we're going to recognize and honor all of the saints. And that's how All Saints Day developed. In 609, during the reign of Pope Boniface IV, the Eastern Emperor Phocas gifted a temple in Rome to the Holy See. The temple, still standing today, is still known as the Pantheon. It was originally built in the 1st century. Destroyed by fire and rebuilt between 118 and 128, it was a public place to worship and honor all the Roman gods and goddesses. Pope Boniface accepted this temple, removed all the pagan embellishments, all the statues of false gods, and, according to legend, relocated and buried the remains of hundreds of Christian martyrs beneath the Pantheon. The Pope then consecrated the Pantheon as a Christian church to the Blessed Mother and all the holy martyrs. The consecration took place on May 13th, and that was the annual date of the Feast of All Martyrs for the next 125 years. So now look, see what's going on here. Okay, the Feast of All Martyrs, all saints, 125 years on May the 13th. But look what happened. On November 1st, oh, look at that date, November 1st, where that came from. On November 1st, see, didn't we, yeah, wait a minute. That was the Celtic New Year, November 1st. That was the Celtic New Year. That was what? That was the All Souls Day for the Celts. All right? That's the Celts. Let me bring this back up here. All right? Well, it was a Celtic New Year. Right? And when they felt that what? All these souls and ghosts would return to earth. So we have this pagan celebration now, November 1st. And what happens? Oh, somehow or another, the Christianity has adopted, look what it says here. On November 1st, 735, Pope Gregory III dedicated an oratory in St. Peter's Basilica to house the relics of the apostles, martyrs, saints, and confessors. Thereafter, November 1st became, at least for the churches in Rome, the Feast of All Saints. And the May 13th day was suppressed. So now, look what happened now. Look what happened. The church has usurped, has adopted this pagan holiday. Now, that's not anything new, because a lot of folks that do some studying in theology and in religion, they know that December 25th, the day that a lot of us celebrate as Christmas and say the birthday of Christ, we know Christ wasn't born on December 25th. You know, no serious theologian, nobody that really knows what they're talking about, will tell you that Jesus Christ is born on December 25th. But yet, that's Christmas Day. That's the day we celebrate Christ's birthday. Well, guess what? Even before Christ was alive, December 25th was a feast day, a holy day, a holiday for many different gods, including a Roman god, Mithra, his feast day. And there's a lot of discussion, a lot of folks of the opinion that what the early church did, the early Christian church did, was instead of fighting the Romans about Mithra and about their habit of having a celebration on December 25th, instead of fighting them about it, they just adopted that as Jesus Christ's birthday. So now, if you like, having fun and carrying on and celebrating on December 25th, you ain't got to stop. But we're going to say that you're celebrating Christ's birthday instead of saying that you're celebrating Mithra's birthday, right? Easy way to get around that. We ain't got to fight about it, all right? So now we see the same thing that the church did when it comes down to All Saints Day. Today, All Saints Day is a solemnity and holy day of obligation on which the universal church honors the martyrs, saints, confessors, including all known and unknown, all who have gained the reward of heaven. Now remember, if you're a saint, if you're a martyr, if you're a confessor, when you die, you go straight to heaven. Now, look at this. This is, I'm talking about the little tricky part right here. The Catholic Church, and you heard me read, said universal, in the context of the Catholic Church, okay? The Catholic Church teaches that, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but there's some different places your soul can go to. Heaven is not the only place your soul can go to when you die. Hey, let's read this. And that information that I just read came from the website www.simplycatholic, www.simplycatholic.com/All Saints and All Souls Day. All right, now, All Souls Day. And look what it says there. prayers for the faithful departed. Okay. All Souls Day is a holy day set aside for honoring the dead. Okay, well, I thought that's what All Saints Day was, honoring the dead. Yeah, but not really just the dead in general. All Saints Day is for all those dead saints and dead martyrs and dead confessors. That's what All Saints Day is about. But they got other folks that died. They're not a saint, they're not a martyr, they're not a confessor. Well, they got a day to honor them too. Some of them, not all of them, some of them. Okay, and it says here, All Souls Day is a holy day set aside for honoring the dead. The day is primarily celebrated in the Catholic Church, but is also celebrated in the Eastern Orthodox Church and a few other denominations of Christianity. The Anglican Church is the largest Protestant church to celebrate the holy day. Most Protestant denominations do not recognize the holiday and disagree with the theology behind it. Now, this right here is where the rub comes in. This is where the humbug is. Okay, you see, the theology behind All Souls Day. And the theology behind that, and this is the Catholic theology, according to Catholic belief, the soul of a person who dies can go to one of three places. Now, some of y'all didn't know that. Some of y'all thought that a person's soul could only go one or two places, either go to heaven or go to hell, right? That's what some of you thought. You can go to heaven, and there you see on the screen, up in the cloud, that place up in the cloud with the pearly gates, and then there's streets paved with gold, and people playing on harp music and all the rest of that, and the angels flying around and all the rest of that, okay? And if you're of the Muslim faith, heaven has the gardens with rivers flowing below, and all virgins that you want. That's what the Islam teaches about heaven. But that's where you go. That's what heaven. If your soul. Now look, remember, the only way you can get in heaven is if you're a martyr or you're a confessor. That's how you get in heaven. All right. If you're just a regular fellow, even if you go to church every day, if you're just a regular fellow, you can't get in heaven, according to the Catholic theology. And it says here, the first is heaven, where a person who dies in the state of perfect grace and communion with God goes. So if you're perfect grace, that's where you go. All right. Now, the other place that you can go is, that fella, and a whole lot of us, and I'll include myself in that, might find ourselves right there. And it says, what's that? That's hell. The second is hell, where those who die in a state of mortal sin are naturally condemned by their choice. Now, mortal sin, Catholics teach that there are different levels of sin. It's kind of like in the world that you can commit a crime. It can be a felony or it could be a misdemeanor. All right. So in the Catholic Church, you could have break religious rules, but it could be a felony, and that's a mortal sin. Like you kill somebody, break one of them 10 commandments. That's a mortal sin. Or it could be what's called a venial sin. Okay, that's like a misdemeanor. All right. So that's and if you die and you have a mortal sin, you committed a mortal sin, and you didn't have the chance to make it to confession and confess that, and you die, then bam, that's too bad. All right. So if you go out, understand now. Look, I'm not making this up. The Catholics, y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay. If you die, if you kill somebody, if you murder somebody, and you have the opportunity, you have time enough to make it to confession and get in front of a priest and confess that I killed this and I'm sorry for killing that person, and say so many prayers and the rest of that, then you're all right. Your soul is clean. Okay, you're all right. Okay, that mortal sin that you committed, you're all right. Okay, you got a pardon. All right, you got a pardon. Right, but if you kill somebody and you're on your way to see a priest for confession, but you get in a car wreck and you die, you're out of luck. You're just out of luck. You're going to hell because you committed mortal sin and you didn't make it to confession. You see that? So that does not quite, that doesn't sound too fair, but that's the way it is. All right? You can commit a mortal sin. You can kill somebody. If you can make it to confession, you can get the slate wiped clean, and then you got a chance to go to heaven. But if you don't make it to confession, that's a wrap for you. You're going to be in hell for all eternity. Okay? Now, look, so we got heaven. If you're perfectly good, perfect grace, you go straight to heaven. If you commit a mortal sin and you don't go to confession, then you go to hell. Well, see, the Catholics, they teach something else. They say that there is a middle ground. Okay, there's another place that you can go. And that other place you can go is purgatory. And it's like halfway between heaven and hell. What you see on your screen right now, that's a depiction. At the bottom, that's supposed to be hell. See all them old naked people, nasty people running around out there in hell trying to grab on somebody. And as you see up at the top, as you see that, having a baby there, and then you see the Pope up in there and all the rest of that, that's supposed to be heaven. All right. And that middle ground, that middle area, that's purgatory. So it's not, you're not in hell. You're not in heaven, but you're in the middle area. Okay. The intermediate option is purgatory, which is thought to be where most people free of mortal sin, but still in a state of lesser venial sin, must go. Purgatory is necessary so that souls can be cleansed and perfected before they enter into heaven. Okay, so look, this is what it says. Look, it says, unless you have perfect, if you have perfect grace, then you go straight to heaven. If you're just a reprobate, just commit mortal sin, you go to hell. But if you just committed some little bitty sins, if you know, like, I don't know what kind of little sin, you told a little white lie, something like that, you know, a venial sin, a misdemeanor, then you hanging out there in purgatory. And the teaching is that everybody hangs out there in purgatory because everybody is not perfect in perfect grace. I don't care how much tithing you do. I don't care how many prayers you say. Yeah, you're not going to be in perfect grace. So you're going to be in this area that's called purgatory. Now look what it says. It says the primary reference. It says there is scriptural basis for this belief. The primary reference is in 2 Maccabees, chapter 12, verse 26, and chapter 12, verse 32. And those scriptures say, turning to supplication, they prayed that the sinful deed might be fully blotted out, thus made atonement for the dead, that they might be free from sin. So look, after you dead, understand, after you dead, you hanging out there floating around in purgatory. Well, the people that's still living, they can pray for you, and they do enough praying that could lift you up into heaven, get you out of purgatory. Yeah, get you out of purgatory and into heaven. Now look here. Now this is something I'm almost at the end to say. Consistent with these teachings and traditions, Catholics believe that through the prayers of the faithful on earth, the dead are cleansed of their sins so they may enter into heaven. So if you have enough people praying for you, that'll cut some of your time. You know, like you get good time. You know, like people in jail, talking about, I got good time. You know, my sentence was 30 years, but I got good time, so I got out in 15. All right, so if you're in purgatory, you're in purgatory and you got enough people praying for you, your time can get cut and you can go up into heaven. All right. So that's what it is. That's what purgatory is. Now read this here. Look at this. Now I'm almost at the end. Pretty close to it right here. It says the belief in purgatory has not been without controversy. Certainly, some flagrant abuses of the doctrine were used to raise money for the church during the Renaissance. Famously, Martin Luther argued with the monk Johann Tessel over the sale of indulgences. Indulgences were sold as spiritual pardons to the poor and applied to the souls of the dead or the living to get people into heaven. You see what I was talking about? Get the time cut? Pardons, indulgences. The abuse of indulgences and the blatant, sometimes fraudulent practice of selling indulgences for money led to Luther's protest. All right, so now I'm going to end it right there. I'm going to end it there because we have gone over time a little bit. So I'm going to end it. But again, now a little bit light has been shined. You have a little bit more information, a little bit more knowledge about the development of this thing that we're talking about is Halloween. A little bit more information about it. And now that you have that light, it's my prayer that having that light, having that knowledge brings you peace. It's my prayer that with that peace, that you'll know that God is Almighty. So no matter wherever it is, whatever it is that you have to go through, is my prayer in this upcoming week until we meet again this coming Sunday online at our celebration, our fellowship, 10 o'clock. We meet again next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. It's my prayer, no matter whatever it is that you have to go through in this upcoming week, that God Almighty blesses you and yours with peace.